right. It looks like we're live. Hey, Ryan Garrison, Sound RIA. I'm joined today with my friend Justin Cambra. Um, Justin has become a little bit of a local, somewhat of a local celebrity, believe it or not. He doesn't believe it, but he. I met Justin a couple years ago. Was it 4 years ago? 3 years ago? We both purchased the Bigger Pockets Intention Journal, and then we were paired together. Jesus, you still do that.
I, I
I'm
still do
so
that,
bad
yeah.
at that. What volume is that you have?
I was probably about 14, 15 of these, and each one of these is 3 months.
Yeah,
So
my audio messed up. I'm gonna put my headphones on too because my audio. You're talking to me through here now, and I don't want to miss you. Um, you say which volume was that?
I want to say it's probably around 14. Each
Oh
one of
man,
these is about 3 months, and some is more filled than others. But now I'm on an accountability team where it's $100 per transaction I miss per day. So it forces me to do it.
I kind of need that sort of accountability because I find ways to definitely do other things. But well, I guess Justin, you hit me up yesterday and you said, "Hey, I've got a lease option thing I wanted to talk to you about, or you've done a few of them. Like, tell me what's going on and see how I can try to give any sort of assistance on that sort of stuff. Are you looking at buying or selling in a lease option?"
Yes. So I'm doing both.
Okay.
So I've done a lot of seller finance, land contract. I've been getting into sub two. Now I'm getting into these lease with the option to purchase. And it's generally centered around people that don't have a whole lot of equity. So if you have zero equity and you sell it, somebody's still got to pay the excise tax, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so instead of paying the excise tax through the sale, in this specific scenario, I'm doing a lease with the option to purchase. So in a lease, I'm just going to record that. It'd be less than $1,000 to close the transaction. There is no excise tax. To help this seller just wanted to be done with the property. They have no equity because they just did a HELOC recently, took all the money out. So then I'm taking over the loan, the lease with the option to purchase. The option price is equal to the excise tax. So that way they never have to give any more money to the property.
Mm-hmm.
So, in today's value, it's around, call it 8,000. But as I pay the property down, that value goes down. So,
Right.
if I paid off half the property, then 8 goes down to 4.
Well, I think it's Greg Penio that's kind of his angle is he likes the reduction of strike price as the principal gets paid down. Okay. And so when you're doing that, so you say that again, you said your option price is the excise tax?
Yeah. So the way it's structured is the option fee is equal to, it's actually two things. One is closing costs, which will probably be, call it 0.5% to 1%. And then 2, it'll be excise tax. Excise tax, 1.78%. So between the two of those, it'll be around 2.5%, call it that.
Okay.
But that's based on the sale price. So, the sale price is here over time as I make payments, that's coming down. So the amount that I'd have to pay decreases. So, the strike price actually decreases over time.
Okay. Well, so let me just make your option fee, not the price. Your fee, not the price, is the excise tax.
Exactly.
Right? Okay.
Excise
Okay. I was like, wait, you're gonna put the option price at like $8,000 for a house? That seems weird. No. Okay. Now I get what you're saying. So that's I don't have the paperwork for that, or Greg's contract. I don't know. You may have something similar. I don't have that for the reduction of strike price. Maybe I'll talk to you about that later if you do. And then, so you already have your buyer and you have your seller already, or are you going to be marketing for a buyer?
I'm right where you're, that latter part. Have it under contract, going to close at the end of the month. I just started posting it on Facebook and Craigslist. and that's why I had reached out to you, because I know you've
Okay.
done it before, and
Okay.
conceptually, I'm going to lease option a lease option.
Okay.
So
And,
I'll
and
be
so it's a sandwich. Yeah, they call it a sandwich lease option. Um,
a slow sandwich
okay.
lease option. Yeah.
So I would, I can definitely give you some things I've learned, some tips and tricks of that. Um, depending, so there's a couple different schools of thought, right? When you're marketing for lease option tenant buyers, one is try to make it as open and inviting and exciting for the tenant buyer as possible, and get as many people interested as possible, right? The thing about that is every person who doesn't own a house, or every person who's paid rent before, thinks the idea of rent to own sounds amazing. So you get a whole bunch of frogs you have to kiss to find the prince.
Mhm.
So
Right.
so basically, like, when I've done it and I've not put any sort of suggestions for, down payment range or anything like that. I mean, I've had properties where I've gotten a couple hundred inquiries, right? And so that's really hard to get through if you don't have a system to handle it. Um, so I put together like a web form and some workflows, some automation behind it, so that they would have to go and fill out the form. It doesn't help me on the Facebook group post, because I still have to reply, and they always, is this available, is always the first response, because they click that and Facebook auto
Yep.
generates it. And they say, yes, it's available. Have you already filled out the tenant buyer profile, the quick buyer profile at renttobuy.biz, right? Like just like a
Ah,
web form landing page. And then that's pretty much my response that I have to write every single time, or have a VA do it, right?
nice.
Um, and then they usually either don't respond, because the people that just click that button, they do it on like 72 other properties as well, right? Or they're like, oh, I have to fill something out. Oh, because the other thing I get all the time between there and Zillow is, hey, I'd like to tour this property. I'm available today or tomorrow. I'm like, I'm
Mhm.
not touring anything with you. Like, I don't know anything about you. I don't know how much money you're talking about this. I don't know if you're just trying to do a normal lease, right? And so I got a screen. That's the thing I'm trying to figure out, how to get enough interest so there's some scarcity, but then also still, get the people that are the higher quality, which is probably 10% or less of the actual people that inquire.
Got
Um,
it.
so the other way to go with that. Well, let me go with that. So this is like the Ron LeGrand style, and this is kind of what the way that we approached it, or way I learned it from them, is now I would do like open houses. So I have all these people, and then I would text them, hey, Saturday from 12 to 1, showing the property. Okay. And so now I'm there, and so I'd text them through my database or whatever. And some people couldn't do it, or whatever. But you get 4 or 5, 6, whatever people there. Now all of a sudden this place has more, and you're like, oh God, there's other people that are interested in this, right?
Right.
I want this house. And that's where, so the Ron LeGrand thing is, you're letting them offer what they will pay a month and what they will pay down. So I try to not put out there a set number for anything. 20 grand down, you have an option to buy, right? Like that kind of thing. I try to not have set numbers. I'm letting them, offer what they can, and to try to win the house. Um, and so sometimes that works out. Sometimes, some people, I can justifiably, because I probably, someone approached me like that, I wouldn't go for it, but I'm not the person that's trying to rent to own the house either. Um, so that's where some people kind of resist it, and so then you try to just feel them out and talk to them and let them know, hey, look, man, I talk to a lot of people, a lot of them can't get it, and that's usually the people that have that resistance. A lot of times are the ones that are more qualified. They're the
Mm.
ones that might be close to buying it. And right now, what I'm running into with it is, I'm not running into people. I guess I'm running into more people that are qualified, because they want to do the rent to own to wait for rates to come down.
Right.
And so, and it used to just be, you do rent to own to try to work on your credit, but be in the house and not have to move again, and know that you'd be able to buy it and maybe have a couple more liberties with the property than you would if you were just doing a typical rental. Um, so the other way, That's like way one. The other way is you put all the stuff that you want in the ad and you get like very few responses. Like, must have, 8% of the purchase price down, which is 50 grand or whatever.
Right.
And, and then your monthly payment's this. Um, and the other thing I would say with that too, from a buyer perspective, if I was buying on a lease option, I would try to negotiate in a credit towards the purchase with every payment. Um, if I were selling on the lease option, or when I do, I try to not have any.
Mm.
But it's negotiable, right? So when we're having that meeting, when we're talking, I might advertise the place at $3,000 a month, and the person says, "Well, does any of that go towards the purchase?" And I say, "No, but if you paid $3,500 a month, then I could probably put 500 towards it."
Interesting.
You know?
Yeah, because that was the question I was going to ask. Is like I have it posted right now on Craigslist, and it's posted at basically market rent. And
Mm-hmm.
then as they reach out, I was going to reply like, assuming they want to do the lease with the option to purchase, how much funds do you have available, and what can you pay on a monthly basis for rent?
Mm-hmm.
Because obviously let's say I can't find a tenant buyer or lease with option buyer, like I'll just list it and rent it at that market rate. But if we go into this lease with the option to purchase, like you're saying, it's like, yeah, that's zero or is in that number, meaning zero paid
Mm-hmm.
out. Now, if you want some of that money to go to it, then we have the down payment and some sort of increase in the rent such that it goes towards that amount.
And I try to call it a base rent, right? And the way you want to, so there are lease purchase agreements in the NWMLS docs. I haven't tried using those, but and you can even, and so that's part of it too, is you can put it on the MLS as a lease purchase as one of your purchase types, right? And so you can get a lot of interest. What I run into with that is the agents, because I put in the buyer's commission side, like I'll do $5,000 down if you bring your lease purchase buyer, knowing I'm going to get a big down payment. But then they get pissy because they're like, "What? This is my buyer on a $500,000 house, right? Or whatever." And you say, "Yeah, but your buyer hasn't bought it. They're just renting. Like, how many rentals do you get? $5,000 from putting your renter in." And it could even go to so far as to say, "Hey, look, yeah, when your buyer closes, if you would prefer to defer compensation to when your buyer actually closes, I'm okay with that, because I know that a good percentage of the people don't ever close." So
So
that's
you're paying in that scenario basically 1% towards the agent ad.
whatever. I mean, a flat, right? So I just put a flat dollar amount.
Yeah.
Like I've also put it in as like, I'll pay 10% of the down payment your buyer brings. But then I had a guy who's like, "Well, he's got 150 grand down," and I'm like, "Whoa, I don't want to pay him that much." you know. So I was like, "Oh, I'll just make it a flat, and if they bring someone cool." I'm really not looking for them to bring someone. I'm looking to attract people because it's out on the MLS. You have a rent tone, and just having it more available, and then you less of an issue with marketing a prop. I mean, granted, it's a lease option. It's not the same as like a for sale in that scenario, but I think there's less of an issue with running into people being whiny about the MLS and having a property out there or whatever that's not listed.
Mm, interesting.
Yeah. So, and then was it you? Did you buy one on a lease option from one of your other properties and 1031 into it?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so that's what I'm running into right now is I have a property that I want a 1031 out of. Actually, I want a 1031 out of all of my Washington single family residences, in case anyone's paying attention. And so like one right now in particular, I bought it sub 2. I've got a pretty low balance on it. It's been updated a little bit. And now it's like, okay, I just don't want to be a landlord here. I might do a lease purchase if I have to with someone. I could do a wraparound, which would be great. And I have someone that's pretty interested and has a good down payment, but I don't have the ability to 1031 if I do that. And so that's my catch 22 of it. And so when you told me about the purchasing on a lease option, it kind of opened my eyes a little bit, because being able to kind of close on my timeline of when I'm ready, when I actually have this one sold and still have the property locked up. It just gives like a lot more flexibility to the 1031 like deadlines. And I thought when I hadn't even ever thought about that, and I was like, that's freaking genius. But
Yeah, I stumbled into it partly because it was when you're trying to do a 1031 regularly, right? You're under a huge amount of pressure
mhm.
for time. For those that are watching, you have what is it? 60 days to notify. Is it 60? No, 45. I can't remember off the top of my head, but
I just listen to what the people tell me when I'm like, if I,
yeah, so it's like let's just say it's 45 days to notify,
mhm,
right? And then the rest of the period you then have to close the property. So that those days go by really fast because
you can only identify three, right? Like,
there's there's three ways you can identify properties. One of them, like you're talking about, is you pick three. You can do another one where it's like double the total value. But the other thing is like originally I was trying to do a reverse 1031. Normally you sell then buy. I was trying to do a reverse where you buy then sell.
mhm,
So come to find out, it's like 5x the expenses. Just because like I think it was going to be a forward exchange is around $1,000 with who I normally use.
mhm,
The reverse is what was it? I think it was close to 10,000.
mhm,
And I was like, whoa, I mean, that, 10,000 adds up. So, and I was like, well, how do I fix this to where the seller's happy and then I'm happy and I take risk off the table? So then it just hit me one day. I was doing my Tony Robbins cold shower, and then I was like, oh my God, what about a lease option? So
mhm,
then I did a lease option. I think it was like 9 months. So that gave me 9 months to sell the properties, to
mhm,
get the money, to then exercise the option. And when I exercised the option, I purchased it subject to the existing
mhm.
mortgage. So it's like, multi level creative strategy. And then my original seed money for that, I did a cross collateralization. So I did like three different
Mhm.
creative financing things to get that one deal done.
Was that with Flynn?
No, private
No.
money lender.
Okay. That's right. I was going to talk because I've been having a weekly call with Kurt Hutchins, and
Mhm.
he was the guy that was telling me like how how well you're doing at wrestling up private lenders. And I was just like, God, I really don't like posting on social media that much, but I see the benefit if I if I actually kind
Oh
of
man,
do.
it's huge.
Yeah.
I have two meetings tomorrow with private money lenders.
Okay.
Meaning they're like, because I always bring it up and I talk about it, and then they're like, if somebody says, yeah, I want to know more, and then
Hmm.
like set up a meeting, run. I have three coming up.
Hmm.
Um, three like taking out a balloon payment, and
Hmm.
then these other two are swapping out of short-term money into call it medium-term money.
Hmm.
Uh, you know, I'm trying to not get new bank debt in 24
Hmm.
because the way that it's shaping up in 25, the rates will be where I need them to be. So why pay all this high level, loan origination, all these fees that I'm just going to refi in a year?
Hmm.
When you do these private money lending, like costs you less than $200 to to create the note and the security instrument, right?
Hmm.
So way cheaper. Even if I pay higher interest, it's still cheaper than a sunk cost of these mortgage fees. So that's what I've been focused on. Um, I did see over here just one of the people watching. Are you seeing Sandra? She's dropping. We should. She
I'm
had a
looking at
couple.
like I got different screens. I got one comment that doesn't have me anything, and then I've got. Let me see. I have three monitors going just in case. Like you ever see me looking way to one side or the other. So
Mhm.
it's and so I don't see her comment. What is it?
All right. So, good morning, Sandra. Let's go. Well, she's had a question here. What's the difference between the option price and the option fee? So,
Ooh.
the option price. So in the example that I was giving earlier, the option price is what I can buy it for. So let's just use simple numbers. Let's say it's 400,000. That means that's the price that I'm going to purchase it from them. The option fee is the fee that I give them for that said option. And if you're not familiar with an option is the right to buy, but you're not obligated to buy it. So theoretically, 5 years from now, I don't have to buy the property. So that's the difference between a real estate contract is like, that's a done deal. You're in. An option allows you to have the ability to exercise and make the purchase or sell. But you don't have to.
So you're purchasing the right to buy with that. So that's, and that they'll also hear it called option consideration.
Yep.
And that's probably the more accurate legal term. And I think on your, when you have an attorney draw it up, they'll usually say that on it. The other term you might hear for that option price is called strike price. So it's like the price you could strike at. One thing that I will do on mine is I will have the strike price go up a certain amount a year. And I got that from was it Home Partners, kind of the way they do it. But I would always have it go up significantly less than they do. If you've ever looked at theirs, oh my God, it's like highway robbery. How much it goes up per year. It's a lot. And then they also, the rent payment also jacks up a lot every year too with them. But yeah, no, that's a good one. Sandra's intention journal looks a lot like my second one.
Yeah.
I definitely run into, I'm the diagram of 13 different directions, but only like an inch in each one, and, between, doing the kid stuff and like all the sports and all the different things with that. And, I got like a little window in the day that they're at school that I'm like, all right, it's quiet. I can focus. And, being able to have that focus time and also to actually execute it and do it and go and do the work and the planning that's kind of one of my things is for a different one this year. I'm like, all right, this one, it's actually already kind of pre-done. So it starts with the beginning of the year. So it's not like the ones that you fill out all of it. Right. And I'm like, all right, I'm actually going to focus on this again and focus on another one. Cause it wasn't the intention journal. It was another one I was using that like the year I was better about it. It helped me. I definitely need that. And it's the remember like the night before kind of planning out your day and your week. That's a big one for me because a lot of times it's just chaos.
Oh yeah, man. You're actually a perfect candidate for the journal so that when you do have the time, you're focused on that time.
Mm-hmm.
Even for me, like I filled it out this morning already. It's kind of hard to tell on that, but
of course you did.
The what I have in there is like almost impossible to get done. Mm-hmm. But if I just do 50% of that every day,
mm-hmm.
like the power of compounding, that's the separation from the average person to people that want to be successful. So it's just consistent daily action, the power of the increments where it's at.
That's awesome. What else do you want to, is there anything else you wanted to dig into? Are there any other questions about like the lease option stuff?
So specifically on that one, it would help if you could send me a copy of that quick form you're saying.
Oh yeah. Well, I'll just give you I'll drop the link. Cause it's on here. I'll put it in the comments that she's looking at.
Oh, cool. And then I can copy it from there.
Yeah.
I'll just use that same form and then,
yeah, I just kind of built that and then it goes into my CRM. And then basically, and I'd probably make some tweaks to it now because now it's just prices and everything's a lot higher. So, but some of it's on the back end. So like, for example, if they put their down payments like nothing, then they get tagged as do not. Now this is actually the brilliant part of it. So for this, I'm using REI Blackbook, and REI Blackbook ties in automations with your phones and whatnot too, how you set it up. And so what happens is when they fill it out, if they're like what I consider a DNQ, does not qualify, they get tagged as that. And when they call the number or anything, it'll never get to me. They get a recording that says, we're sorry, we don't have a property for you. Right. And then there's some people that are kind of in the gray area. They filled it out, but, and then there's the VIPs, and the VIPs, when they call it, it rings to me. So it's like, okay, this person actually has a good down payment, good income, or one or the other. And then when I look through the responses, I let them just estimate what their credit score is. And if they don't have a down payment, but they have a high credit score, I still try to chat with them, because they could maybe get a personal loan, right?
Right.
That kind of thing, to get the option fee. So that automation, or that way of screening people, has been good. And then I have a Home Partners link from when I set up an account on there as an agent a while back. And then if they're DNQ, they get a, hey, you know what, you're not going to fit in our program email, but here's a link for another company that might be able to help you with a lease purchase. And then kind of pass it on to them.
You get a referral out of that? Or
I think, well, at least the way it was working, and it may have changed with the current market and stuff. The way it was working was they would go through their pre-qual process, and then I would be listed in there as like their agent if they got pre-qualified to buy with them. So not a referral fee necessarily, but I think I haven't had one work out that way. But you got to remember, I'm sending in people that maybe have a little lower income or lower down payments or that kind of thing.
Yeah, if you so you already have a database. So yeah, if you have anybody in Puyallup.
Oh, there's lots. I mean, I'm doing one in Puyallup now.
Yeah.
I'm getting ready to list it. And so that's, there's a bunch of people that are interested, but it's that same thing. It's that screening process. And what I have found too is like the long-term data retention, like keeping your list of tenant buyers, is worthless for this, because by the time, like say 6 months from now, a year from now, I have another property. Well, it's going to be the same thing. It's the people that are looking, that have the money, that want to move and want to go through it. And the people that 6 months ago were looking at lease option, either decided it wasn't for them, or they got into a different place, or they're in a year lease. And so they're 6 months more away from getting into something else. And so I just haven't found any value. So I've turned off like my drip campaigns for the people in the database. I will still send them a text, say, hey, look, we have a property in this area that, we're going to be, that we're now renting or whatever. Right. And then a link to like a property marketing page. But, I'll send them that email, but the drips haven't been valuable. But just the fresh ones seem like they're the best ones.
What are you seeing on terms of, let's just use the same example, 400K. What do you, let's just say market rent is 2,500 for some. And what would you typically get on the ones you're doing for the down, the option fee, and then the strike price or option price, and then the monthly payment?
Is it like turnkey, like updated, or is it like kind of a fixer? That kind of will affect it a little bit, right? My goal, not necessarily what I get, but what I hope to get is, roughly 10% of the price. Now, and then I'll let people know, sometimes we'll go down to 5%, but it just depends on the property. Like if I have it on there for 3 months and I haven't found anybody with a decent down payment, then okay, we'll look at a little bit less. And then, that makes sense to you, right? And, and they're like, yeah, that makes sense. And so occasionally I'll get people that are hanging out with a little bit lower amount down. And if they have the other thing I will tell them too is like, hey, look, if you have a little bit less down, but you can afford a little bit more per month, then let's talk about how maybe we could structure that. I've also done it where they have 5% cash, and then we do a 5% unsecured note on that they're paying a payment on at 12% or whatever, right? And so then that extra, say, $250 on this, so they had 225, and then they have a 25 unsecured note, personal loan with me, and then they're paying that as the rest of their option that was $50,000. And it just get a little bit higher. And then that still has to get paid off, and you're just getting interest on it. And you make it very clear they still owe it even if they don't exercise their option, because it's a loan. Now, I had one that didn't work out on, but it's still not a bad idea.
It's a good idea. And then, so then it sounds like 5 to 10% down, and then roughly percentage or dollar per month towards the
Well, I do zero, right? That's what I'm in. The one I did where I did have it, it was like the rent was higher. I was like, okay, well, we'll do if you increase it to this, then we'll allow this much towards it, um, kind of thing. But yeah, it's ultimately, if they want credit towards it, they need to get the mortgage and they need to go and do that. You're still paying property taxes, you're still paying insurance, um, that kind of thing. I got one that they have like a $2,000 lien on the water bill. They were supposed to be paying the water bill, they didn't. Like that kind of stuff. You still have a lot of expenses and risk. So you know, this is to give them the opportunity to buy it, not to be their savings account. But if you want to do the savings account thing, you can. I just try to get more out of it.
Got it. And then you're doing like 3 times rent for income, and then like 640 or something, or 650 credit score.
For the most part, but on the credit score, I don't care. I mean, if someone has $100,000 down, that's kind of the point, right? Like, why would you do a lease option? Well, I've got my finances in order. I've got the cash. I had a divorce, or I'm self-employed a lot of times, or I'm maybe an I-10, but I've got the finances in order, and so that's how you can overlook some of the credit stuff. So but I will tell you, um, I'm not perfect at it. I've got an eviction I'm doing on one right now that, God, it was. So the thing with this one is it was kind of a fixer, so I couldn't get like top dollar on the down and that kind of thing, right? Um, and I think it was only like 15 grand down. Um, and then they had the husband wife. He was the breadwinner, and then they had some kids that were like, I don't know, 4 kids or whatever. Five, I had 4 kids that I knew about, but I think there's 5 or 6. And then it's only a 3-bed, 1-bath, and then they had some sort of issues with his work, and she didn't make any money, and then they had a domestic issue, and he's not there anymore, and then they moved in some relatives that I don't think have jobs and stuff too. So there's like 12 people in this little 3-bed, 1-bath right now, and I'm going through the whole eviction process, and it just is not very fun.
Yeah.
But I will say I put like 3 or 4 people into lease options at the beginning of COVID, before they even put all the weird laws in place. And I think that saved me, because all of these people had some skin in the game more than just their deposit. And so when the government came out with all these things, basically saying that they don't have to pay rent and you can't get evicted, they didn't want to lose that skin in the game.
Yeah, their option. Yeah, if they basically default.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's if you don't buy it, or you void the lease. You want it pretty clear they don't get anything back. You want to make it very, very clear they don't get. That's not a security deposit.
Right.
Because I've heard of people arguing that was their deposit or whatever, and they should get it back. So someone was telling me to get a security deposit even though you have the option, because I was always trying to just get a bigger option, right? But that way you can at least differentiate the two.
So you gotta get like 2 months, ideally 2 months rent, and then for a security deposit, and then the balance is all the option consideration.
If you can, you're dealing with a lot of people that are a little bit different. I feel more secure just having a bigger option. Like, so if I have a $40,000 option, or I have to go and take a $30,000 option to have like a bigger security deposit or last month's rent or whatever, I'd rather have just the $40,000 option, because they're committed and it's gone if they don't perform, right? And so and then you don't have to worry about sending a 14-day letter, notice of deposit at the end, or condition, or all that stuff, and you can avoid it. I will tell you though, at least from attorneys I've talked to, Washington looks at the lease option. It falls under landlord tenant law. Some states it doesn't. So even though you may you may agree with the tenant buyer that repairs are their responsibility and like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Um, the Washington landlord tenant law, if it ever became an issue, you'd lose. Um, but it's part of getting the right people in the house too. And kind of where your philosophy is at on it. But I always try to like make sure that I'm very clear about, hey, look, the toilet breaks, it's your toilet, like, that kind of thing. But if it ever
Mhm.
becomes an issue, then we'll get it handled because we want to have a working toilet in the house, right?
Right.
I've heard of people like um, adding back in either in rent or on the strike price. So then the strike price gets adjusted if you need to cover like certain things on the house. So all of a sudden it needs a new roof or whatever, right? Um, so you can be creative.
Cool, man. There's a question, Facebook. What's the percent of your lease to own who end up walking away and never exercising the option?
Well, there's a few different paths you can go down with that. Um, some of them have stopped paying rent and had to go. Um, I've had some where they split up, like the husband wife, and so then buying wouldn't one of them wouldn't work or wouldn't buy it without the other. Um, I've got one right now that he's self-employed, and we're just trying to get him qualified so he can buy it. So I've done a handful of them. I haven't had anyone perform on it yet. But I don't know if that's a big enough sample size, but I know just statistically from other investors, I want to say it's, 70% or so don't perform. So it's, the majority.
Interesting.
Hmm.
Hmm.
So no, that's a good question though. Um, I don't know. Was there anything else you wanted to touch on with it, or anything that we might have glossed over?
No, it sounds like you'll send me the. I didn't see the link in
You didn't?
the
Oh,
chat,
okay. I,
but
I, I just put it in the comment, but yeah, I can.
or where's
That's
the
weird. On
call?
my screen, it shows 7 minutes before Scott's comment. Oh well, I'll shoot it over to you, bud.
Okay.
And it's pretty easy. I'll tell everyone too audibly. It's the one I have it at is rent the number two buy.biz, and that's just like a landing page that I have where people can fill out a simple form. I call it a buyer profile. Um, don't fill it out if you're not trying to rent to own a house, please. So that you don't get
Yeah.
all my automated stuff, but you can at least see kind of the form and what it's kind of the approach with it. Um,
Ah,
oh, you pulled it up. Okay.
I just pulled it up. I'm gonna send it to my VA to put into the email responses on the Craigslist. Not your link, but the same questions.
Yeah, do like a type form or something like that, or
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and that'd work fine too. You don't even need the website if you send it that way. Um, Send it over. I'm actually playing around, so I'm using Bryce Decora's like CloseBot,
Hmm.
and I'm playing around with trying to build a bot that basically asks all those questions via text. So then it kind of fills out the form via conversationally. Um, and so then I can try to kind of go through that and be like, just text me at this number instead of, because on my ad I'll say like text this keyword to this number. So text Puyallup or whatever, and then it sends them the link. Hey, glad you're interested in our property in Puyallup. Here's a link to where you can fill out your buyer profile, and it's got like the automation tied to it or whatever. Um, so just trying to like get a little bit more conversational with it.
Nice, man.
Yeah. But cool, man. Well, I'm going to shut this down, and then let's. I don't think there's any other questions on there, and then hang on offline. I just wanted to chat with you a little bit. All right.